Good evening, everybody. It's Jordan from don'tbuythehype.blogspot.com, bringing the post-game analysis, post-game reaction from the just finished SEC championship game between Georgia and LSU. Obviously, the final ended up LSU 42, Georgia 10. It really was a tale of two halves. I said last night in my preview video, if you check that out, that Georgia had to get off to a fast start and compete for 60 minutes. The fast start part, obviously, Georgia got off to, took the ball down almost to the end zone, took a false start penalty, had to settle for a field goal, ended up dropping a touchdown pass by Tavares King. A little bit later on the next drive, once Georgia got a 3-and-out and got the ball back, we were able to take the ball back down the field. We owned the first quarter, really the first half against LSU, but in the first quarter we had to get off that fast start. I think the coaches had an excellent game plan. They set forth after we scored, we kick the onside kick, get it back. Just had a lot of things that went right for us in the first quarter. That said, we really didn't fully take advantage of the opportunities that we had, and I think that was the story in the ball game. After all that had happened in the first quarter, the domination by Georgia, we were still left with only a 10-0 lead, which obviously against LSU is not enough to make them blink an eye, much less panic. I think that was where we made our mistake there. Tavares King again on that first drive had a chance for a touchdown, went through his hands. Malcolm Mitchell dropped a sure touchdown he could have walked in on. Blair Walsh misses another field goal. We left lots of points on the board there in the first quarter. If we come out sharp and crisp and really attack LSU there, we're looking at, if not 17-0, maybe even 21-0 there in the first quarter, and that really puts the pressure on to LSU. That said, the first half, was definitely one of Georgia's better halves of the year. LSU did not get a first down in the first half at all. The defense was just outstanding. Much was made about LSU's ability to run the football, and Georgia not being able to stop that. We talked about that last night. They couldn't get anything going against Georgia in the first half. I believe at halftime, obviously there were no first downs, maybe 5 yards rushing. I think 12 total yards of offense is what they had at halftime. That said, obviously, like we were saying earlier, it was a tale of two halves. LSU came out and dominated the second half. You thought that even after the Tyrann Mathieu punt return there in the second quarter, it was 10-7. Georgia comes out, receives the football. We thought if we could string a drive together there, even if we don't score a touchdown, but just take 5 or 6 minutes off the clock, kick a field goal, that Georgia would definitely be in the game for the remainder of the game to hang around. And that leads us really to the turning point in the ball game. For me, a lot will be made about Matthew's punt return for a touchdown and that being the turning point. But to me, really, the turning point in the football game was Aaron Murray's fumble on the third down scramble there in the first drive of the second half. That set LSU up on offense, in a position where they could immediately score. They obviously had no success in the first half, but then we handed them the football inside the 30-yard line, and here they are with a chance to go in and score and take a lead, and that's exactly what they did. I think Georgia's body language as a team, I think it changed at that point. I know as a fan, as I was watching the game, as soon as Murray fumbled the ball, obviously a lot of people thought he may have been down first. Once we saw the replay, it was definitely a fumble. My first reaction was, oh no, here we go. And I bet if I was thinking that I'm sure a lot of the players were thinking the same thing too. And it was just an avalanche. It went downhill from there. Again, highlights of the game. Obviously, the first half, Georgia's defense was absolutely incredible. That's definitely what we expected Todd Grantham to do with our defense. As a fan, I say we need to pay Todd Grantham whatever it takes to keep him around here at Georgia. I think he's done a great job. Obviously, recruiting better talent on defense. We're recruiting bigger talent on defense. And I think that was evident in the first half as we dominated the LSU offense. What hamstrung Georgia was the ability to not run the football. You have to be able to have a dual threat attack against LSU. If not, then their front four is just going to tee off on the quarterback, and the back seven are going to tee off on the receivers. And that's exactly what happened in the second half, and Georgia couldn't get anything going on offense, couldn't move the football at all, because once it started snowballing, we had to throw the football to try to stay in the football game. Obviously, when that happens, you're throwing incomplete passes, the clock is stopping, and that just gives LSU more touches and more possessions for them to score a lot of points. That's what they've done with a lot of teams this year. They scored a defensive touchdown on a pick six there in the second half. Again, the Tyrann Mathieu punt return for a touchdown. Another one was taken back to the 20-yard line. That's two, almost three touchdowns that were provided by the defense and the special teams. That is why LSU is the best team in the country. And moving forward, obviously Georgia is 10-3. Got a great shot at a New Year's Day, actually January 2nd this year, because New Year's was on NFL Day, for a bowl game. Probably most likely the Outback Bowl against a Big Ten opponent, maybe a Penn State or a Nebraska. Either one of those will provide a good challenge for Georgia and a chance to build some steam, some momentum going into next season. Obviously, we'll get a few guys back from injury, mainly Richard Samuel at tailback before the bowl game, and that should help us out as well. For LSU, obviously, they're moving on to the national championship game. To me personally, I don't think that there is much debate as to who they should play. To me, I think the two best teams in the country, which is what the BCS is set up for, is LSU and Alabama. I know a lot of folks will will try to make an argument that since Alabama didn't play for the conference championship, how in the world could they play for a national championship? Odd things happen sometimes. I don't think Arkansas is the third best team in the country, but I do think that the top two teams in the country reside in the SEC West. I know much was said back in 2007 by the great Les Miles about how if you didn't win your conference, you didn't deserve to play for a championship. He came out and defended LSU, and they were able to jump from number 7 over Georgia, who didn't play for the conference title, who was in line to jump to number 2. They jumped over Georgia into the second spot to play for the BCS National Championship. Secretly in my own mind, I'm sure in a lot of Dog fans' minds, we were really hoping to win this game, so that maybe some way we could possibly ruin Les Miles' shot to play for the national championship. But all in all, guys, really, I think the two best teams in the country are LSU, without a doubt. They're the best team. They're actually probably the best team we've seen in a few years. And Alabama. Obviously they played to a 6-6 tie in regulation. Alabama lost it in overtime. I think it will be a great rematch. I think you'll see a chess match being played between the two best coaches in the country. Especially defensively. I expect another defensive slugfest. Obviously, I think there will be a few touchdowns scored in the national championship game. But all in all, guys, I really see that being another excellent football game. I know a lot of folks around the country will say, "Oh, we've been there, we've already seen that. It was dull, it was boring." If you really are a football fan, an aficionado of the game of football, then you have to love the defenses at LSU and Alabama. They're the most strong, they're the most physical, they're the most fast defenses in the country. Just because a game is 9-6 does not make it a bad ball game. As a matter of fact, that was probably the hardest hitting football game I've seen in a long time. So I'm really looking forward to that rematch. I think it'll be a great game. I'm really looking forward to see Georgia get some extra practices to set up for the bowl game. Maybe we'll get some early enrollees that will come in and join us for the bowl practices mainly. And I tell you, for Dog fans, December the 6th, that's this coming Tuesday, is going to be a big day. It's the #1 running back in the country. Keith Marshall makes his college decision. His plan is also to enroll early, so we may see Keith Marshall on campus here before too long. The consensus feeling is he's a Georgia Bulldog. We certainly hope for that. That will definitely push some of our running backs to work a little bit harder. Not naming names, but hopefully that will help us and just create some more depth in some positions that we need some help with. So again, a great SEC championship game for the first half if you're a Georgia fan, for the second half if you're an LSU fan. But again, like we said, for Georgia, got off to the fast start, but we just couldn't maintain that in the second half. Whoever has a chance of beating LSU is going to have to play 60 minutes or more, as was the case with Alabama in overtime. But that's what it's going to take to beat LSU, and we'll talk more about that matchup when we get there later on in January. So again, final score: LSU 42, Georgia 10. A little bit higher margin than I expected, but all in all, about the way I expected the game to play out. We'll be talking more with you about the bowl picture as soon as the bowl matchups are announced tomorrow evening on ESPN. Have a great night.